All right, guys, it's 6 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Please say the pledge with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. So moved. All right, we have first, second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, was there anybody signed up? I didn't happen to look on the way in. Apparently so. All right, Todd. Just table over here would be great. Just say and spell your name real quick and you're good to go.
1 second so we can move the
Camera,
speaker.
Oh,
Microphone for you. I won't need the microphone. Todd Dormeyer, TODD, last of Dormeyer, DORMAIER.
whenever you're ready.
Okay. I am in front of you guys tonight. I appreciate you guys allowing me to speak. With a major safety concern, I see Matt Ellis is here, but I do not see or notice a Amy Cook. So this has in regards to, okay, perfect. This has direct response to Amy Cook and Matt Ellis. I'm actually here on behalf of my wife. She has been doing this, but unfortunately due to the school district's improper scheduling, we have a conflict of interest. I will get to that in a little bit. Just a little bit about myself. I've been in public service for 18 years. So public service of kids, not only within the schools, but also within the community, as well as community citizens and adults, has been a huge part of my life. 5 years of that was for Prosser itself. It was a big decision for us to move to this town based off of what we heard from the school district. I feel as though that is long gone. I feel as though we do not have that anymore in our community. We have a very beautiful school that the taxpayers has purchased for the kids and for the teachers. And I feel that we are being let down by what we voted for. On 10/19, the bus did not pick up our kids, rather. There was no direct notice. We were not told by paper. We were not told by Facebook. We were not told by email from the district. We were not told by phone tree. However, the answer to that, and I'll get to it in a little bit, but I'll speak on behalf of it a little bit, is our kids were told. I have a 2nd grader and a 5th grader, and I have another kid that will be in the school district soon. A 2nd grader and a 5th grader should not have the responsibility of taking home information of their safety in regards to their bus route changes. They have plenty of other things going on throughout the day to think of. They have, my kids specifically have an 1/8 of a mile to 1/4 of a mile walk by themselves. Their minds are not on what just took place on the bus. Furthermore, I do not see my kids for 2.5 to 3 hours after they get home. 2.5 to 3 hours of my kids doing other things. They're not going to remember something that they were told on the bus. A phone call was prompted to the bus garage. Cindy, who we absolutely appreciate, and I give kudos to her publicly, she has always been awesome, was unavailable to answer the phone. Instead, Amy answered the phone. When it was asked where bus 16 was, which they got confused, so there's another concern. They're not even quite sure which route we have our kids on. Bus 16, route 16, the driver said she would, and these are quotes, she was already gone through the area and long gone now. My wife was sitting out there at 7 o'clock in the morning, which is plenty of time prior to the bus arriving at normal schedule time. When asked of Amy why it was so early, her reply was, well, the kids were told yesterday that the bus would be 15 minutes early. There again, a 2nd grader and a 5th grader should not be held responsible for this information. My wife replied, what do you mean? You mean to tell me that any other options to deliver that message and you felt that was appropriate? No response back. She did, however, respond back in a snooty attitude. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you. I do not accept that apology. I have not gotten an apology from the school district, nor Matt Ellis, nor Amy Cook since. Following up that conversation was an email from my wife to Amy Cook directly. That email, bear with me. I am emailing you, Amy. I am emailing you to follow up requesting more information as to why I did not get a message from transportation or the school that the bus schedule will be changing 15 minutes earlier than normal moving forward. Even a simple generated text early enough for parents to prepare to get their children to school on time. It is appalling to me that you think that this was the best solution. I am very disappointed in the lack of communication you have provided to the parents of our school district. Also, I'd like to make note, we were not the only ones. There were multiple parents sitting at the bus stop waiting for a bus that was never going to show up. Luckily, we're given the opportunity to drop our kids off at the bus stop. We don't drop our kids. What would have happened if our kids were dropped off? What would have happened if our kids had to walk back home? Our kids are in 2nd grade and 5th grade. They do not have cell phones, nor will they have them for a while. How do they get a hold of somebody if a bus never picks them up that is supposed to schedule to pick them up with no notifications to the parents? Moving forward. Nothing was responded back to that email. And sorry, I apologize. Amy did respond back to that. Amy responded back with, I am looking into this as to why you were not notified through a note like the rest of the students who were notified by the closure of Route 17. Again, incorrect route. It's Route 16. Once I find out where it was dropped off, or once I find out where it was dropped, I will let you know. We have heard nothing since. Another email was sent out 11/1. That email, I'll give you the gist of it. It's lengthy. It has now been 2 weeks with absolutely zero follow-up nor any communication from you. It's absolutely unacceptable behavior and unprofessionalism on your behalf. The situation of kids being left at the bus stop could have been a lot worse. Going into further on that, elaborating, there was a sex offender at the bus stop at Rattery and 232. He lived at the house on that corner. I dealt with that a couple years back. However, if I did not deal with that a couple years back and that sex offender still lived there and our kids are there with no bus showing up, I think you know where I'm going with that. Some of the questions my wife directly asked in that email: what if I dropped my kids off at the bus stop, then left for work? Would they have been sitting there all by themselves for who knows how long? Would they have no way to contact someone in the event of emergency or worst case abduction? Who is responsible for when kids are missing due to a bus not showing up when it was supposed to show up? The fact that the school district and yourself specifically allowed this situation to occur infuriates me. Again, this is on behalf of my wife. As a parent, we do everything and anything for our children to be safe, and you clearly did not take that into consideration, nor have the decency to resolve this situation or take it upon yourself, or at least apologize sincerely for what occurred. What is your response and answer to this situation? Your lack of prioritization in this matter is disgusting. This specific email was also BCC'd to Elisa and Matt Ellis. Nothing from Matt Ellis to this day, but I see he is present. Nothing from Amy Cook to this day, but I see she is present. Elisa did very promptly reply back. She invited us to this meeting. This is where I get to this meeting. The school district has scheduled a program tonight for the veterans, for our kids to sing to those veterans. I have to make a decision to watch my kids do that or sit here and deal with nonsense. I'm missing my school's or my kids' program because I have to deal with the irresponsibility of the employees of this school district and because of lack of communication. Some of the questions that we had, I think I've covered all of them. Again, just to reiterate, what if we dropped our kids off, no bus showing up? What if someone picked them up as a result of a bus that didn't show up? What if the weather was bad? They stood out in the weather for a bus that never existed. What if they had to walk back with no way to contact anyone? Who would be held accountable for missing 1 but 2 children? Why have we yet to hear back from Amy? Why did I never hear back from Matt Ellis? Why is communication so lacking with the Prosser School District? Who is held responsible for the lack of safety practices on behalf of the school district and on behalf of the bus transportation management? And furthermore, as we go into winter, we were very blessed by Mr. Peterson, Bill Peterson, who formerly worked for this district and who worked in Amy's current position. He drove the roads every morning, and I can attest to that because we had wrecks and he would be out there driving. He drove the worst pickup this school district had, no heater, barely working windshield wipers. He made the rounds to make sure our kids are safe and to make sure the school buses were on the road when they were supposed to be. And when they were not supposed to be, he made that call. He knew that call affected parents' livelihoods, their schedules, but he made that decision on his own by what he saw. I firmly do not believe that is taking place right now. Last winter, our kids went to school when it was blistering cold, snow blowing. I'm all for that, but we need to have consistency. We can't be going to school with snow blowing, ice on the roads, and then the next day, same situation, and we're not going to school. Furthermore, we went and did not go to school on days we had lesser conditions. I get it, weather changes. Again, consistency from the school district, communication from the school district. At any one point, I'd like to have some answers back. I don't know if that's tonight or the formalities of that, how that will work. But I feel that as parents of this school district, we have been 100% let down by multiple people in this situation. And I feel as I'm a voice for the rest of the parents, again, we were not the only parents sitting at the bus stop for 20 minutes with no bus showing up and no answer.
Well, sir, I'd like to take the opportunity to apologize for the misunderstandings, for your kids having to sit there, for you having to miss their program tonight. I'm not really in a place to comment on any of this because this is literally the first I've heard of it. However, we can make sure that it's looked into and somebody gets back to you. That's the best I could promise it.
I appreciate that, but I've heard that already. So I hope that the board follows through more so than Matt Ellis and Amy Cook.
I would also suggest that you email the entire board, not just one member,
Yes,
because
please.
just like he said, I had no idea until you came here today.
Yeah, and I can't speak on that, Beth. That's for my wife.
I'm
So
just, I mean, we're all our emails are posted and everybody knows that. Just send it all out. That way we all have the same information going forward.
copy that. Anything further? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for speaking up. Is there anybody online, Blake? Nobody? All right. Well, then moving forward, we have information items, elementary SIP preview.
Yeah, so we have the elementary principals here and they are going to give you just a brief introduction. It's really a primer of their school improvement plans and what you can expect. And so we have each of them here. I don't know who wants to start, but
Don't everybody jump up at once.
each one will kind of give you a
First, that way I don't.
Somebody's brave. See that, Denny?
introduction of what they're doing.
We said Kevin was gonna go first.
Oh,
That was the plan.
That was the plan. I do want to show you my new sweatshirt that I got that my secretary's made for me. Isn't it super cute? That's what I'm wearing today. I got cold in my building today.
Put the thing back.
Oh.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys, do you guys have our school improvement plans in front of you?
No.
Not yet. Okay. Well, you're going to see that there's some learning loss. And you're going to see that what I appreciate about this is our first time that our students have actually taken the SBA, like even the fifth graders. So this is a great starting off and jumping off point. So I wanted to kind of share with you what we've done since then. So at the beginning of the year, we meet as a leadership team. So it has parents and everyone's that is represented at school. And we kind of created our own little mini school improvement plan. So you'll see the OSPI one, that's kind of our crossing our T's and dotting our I's, but we've created a different one, or not a different one, that's not true. One that's easier to follow. How's that? Like a little bit more meaningful for the teachers and for staff. And we've added, you'll see the ELA and math portion and ELL. We've also added the Avid and parent portion. So we kind of met, it was an all-day thing. We met and we came up with some goals. Our goals just stopped in January. We wanted to have some short-term goals. And so we can kind of have a very wise principal one time told me, quick wins, quick wins. I think it was, I'm not quoting it correctly, but anyways, he was very wise. He is very wise. So we're trying to do that. So we've seen what we have last year, our SBA data, but also our iReady data, and we've created some goals for our math and rating for that. So this year we've been very intentional. So every meeting that we have, we bring back some data of some sort, and we're really looking at what does the data tell us? Not necessarily our opinions, but really what did the data tells us? So last year we read this book, and I believe another school district also read it. And so our teachers were able to read, if they wanted to, it was voluntary, Visible Learning for Literacy. And so recently what we did was we took, because I don't want to have it as, you hear drive-by PD a lot. Maybe you don't hear it. We hear it a lot, like drive-by, like it's kind of a one and done. So we've taken our book and we want to reuse this. So in the back of the book, it says the influences and effect sizes, and the larger the effect size, the more, oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. The more impact it has on student learning. Yes. So we took the top 10 and we used our leadership team. We took the top 10 to our leadership team, and they came up with 5 that they thought, and we took it to our teachers then as a staff, and our staff picked 2. Overwhelmingly, they chose actually classroom discussion and questioning. And so I also want to thank you for allowing us to have a full-time instructional coach, because this is where we have Kendra Wood. She's amazing. So Kendra and I are now that we've picked this as a staff, we are now going to really focus, kind of narrow in on that focus of teacher discussion or classroom discussion and questioning to really help with that. So I wanted to let you know that we're continuing to go back with that. And also with having our full-time, the importance of having a full-time instructional coach is that she's able to do mini cycles. And she was just showing me some data today that she was doing with a 5th grade math teacher, and said, hey, look at this, we just did a beginning and an end mini cycle. This was our data at the beginning. Look at our data now. And here today I'm going in and talking about next steps and what we're going to do after that. And so she's been great. And she's also one of our things in our school improvement plan as a staff, and you'll see it in my OSPI one too, is that number talks has been big. Like we're pushing number talks this year, and Kendra is leading a number talks book study after school. And so that's been really good because it's been fun to watch the teachers. I have one in particular teacher that she told me last year, she was like, I'm not doing that. And I was like, well, we'll see, and she's like, no, I don't think this is going to work. And it was like, okay. But this was an expectation, like, nope, we're all going to do number talks, and we're all going to, we're going to see this. And she has been the biggest, voice of everyone needs to do number talks. Like, this has been amazing. Like, my kids are starting to, so it's been great. So I definitely want to do that. And another positive thing that we've been doing also to make up for some of the loss of learning is I also want to thank you for the ARC curriculum. That has been great. And we're just digging into this. Like, we're still learning so much. Tomorrow we have a virtual training. I love the fact that they're so willing to meet with us monthly. Like, I think monthly, every 6 weeks-ish, they meet with us, and they're Johnny on the spot with any kind of questions that we have. We're able to email, call. They're great. So we're meeting tomorrow. And so every homeroom teacher will get to meet with them. And we're going to talk about toolkits, which is really the small groups and the intervention part. And so, and you can see the progress, and they'll, if you go into School Connect, but you can see, if you look at a teacher, you can see every kid, what they're anticipating, like the program based on the teacher's notes and what they're being able to put in their growth, their anticipated growth. And so that's been really great. So I just wanted to let you know that we've got learning loss. It's going to show, it's going to be blaring, and there was a lot of tears by me by the teachers and it's been hard. But I also want you to see what we're doing. Like, we're back in our building, we're together. We're not having to, we're still under construction. We told Ryan and Ronnie today that, we'll see them at Christmas still. But we have a plan. I guess that's the big thing. And that's been the most exciting thing about what we've got going on this year. So do you have any questions?
With an SBA.
Oh, Smarter Balance Assessment. It's the end of the year culminating state assessment. It was, this year it was, our kids took it twice. Was it, did they? Yeah, they took it twice. I was thinking just third grade for some reason. They took it twice, but it was a shortened and we couldn't really get a lot of, like, you can't see the claims. It will say like no claims shown, and that's more of the details. And so, I mean, it was just numbers at this, like we can see, but it's not as detailed as what it normally is because it's shortened.
What's a number?
Huh?
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
No, go ahead. Finish your question.
What's a number talk?
Number talk is, huh? Oh, yes, you asked.
Maybe.
So what you're gonna do, oh, okay, I am an ELA teacher, okay? Like I can tell you, but I'm learning number talks, and so I will model. Okay, so what they're gonna do is they'll put up a number up on the board, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Like, this is about teacher credibility is also very high for influences on effect or on our effect size. So this is gonna either have some credibility or you're gonna totally take me down here. But so they'll put a number on the board. And the kids will, it's all in their head, right? So they're figuring out the problem in their head. And when they come up with a way to do it, they'll put on their, by their shoulder, how many strategies, different strategies that they can use, okay? And so then the teacher's like, okay, like after that, are you gonna do it?
You're describing it.
Okay. So then after the,
No.
after the teacher does, like after that, they get a little bit of time to think, and then they'll go, okay. And they'll say, Deanna, what's the answer? And she'll say a number, and the teacher puts up the number. And okay, Matt, what's the number? What do you think? And Matt, maybe the answer is the same, and he'll say the same, or maybe it's different. Okay? Oh,
Kevin.
There you go.
Kevin.
You got a writing-
Kevin.
Board for you.
Kevin.
you got a writing stick now.
Got all sorts of fun stuff we can do with these projectors.
All right. So Kevin's gonna put up a number,
An expression.
an expression, thank you. This is where the math, these two are math teachers, I'm the ELA teacher. So, all right, here is the expression. Okay, and so you'll come up with ways to solve that, right? And so does anyone have the answer?
No paper, pencil.
No paper, it's just thinking.
This
okay.
is to build fluency in math
Mhm.
and flexibility, so that when they get to algebra, it's more abstract, so they have the flexibility to work with that. That's the goal, end goal.
Okay,
And then the students will put a thumb up when they have their solution. The next step is the teacher asks for volunteers to give a solution, and then they record that, and then you ask who would like to share their strategy, and then you report the kids' strategies. How they solved it.
I would have said that, I just didn't say expression. There's my teacher credibility.
So this is, Andy said Common Core math. And so this is, they talk about numeracy more than they do procedure based. In fact, that's what they call it math wars. But it builds that numeracy. There's Ruth Parker, Joe Bowler out of Stanford, for people that kind of help develop this. Yeah, started to get this going. We had Dorothy Gary that was working with us on some of this, but it really helps students articulate the process, what they're doing. And then there are multiple processes sometimes that students have. And so when they confer and they start talking about those problem solving, like Kevin was saying, it starts to develop flexibility.
Well, and when a kid when they get it wrong, the answer is wrong, they're able to, oh, I missed it there. Or, they're able to explain. And it is fascinating to listen to how these kids,
That's a strategy.
Uh-huh. how these kids come up with their answer. Like, I subtract 2 and it's like, where did you get the 2? Like, And because again, like my background is in ELA. We're in reading chapter 4. We're really at chapter 6, but we just did on Monday, we reviewed chapter 4. And something I did not realize is that Number Talks goes all the way to high school, and they're talking about it in algebra and stuff like that. And I was just like, oh, I did not know that. And I just didn't. So it's been really good.
I would
And-
say too, like Kevin put that one example up there, but what they're trying to get is multiple ways students solved it. So that another student might say, well, I took the 3 off the 13, 3 ones, and I made that 30, and then it's 30 plus 10. So that kids, because a lot of adults and kids can't do mental math. And so walking through the grocery store, trying to add up, you have $30, can you buy what can you store to buy? So there's just, you would get as many, the teachers would accept and listen to any, and then made the 13 was 10, so 30 plus 10. So they take all the students' answers, even if it's wrong,
Mhm.
they can talk about that.
Mhm.
Good job, Kevin. Can you think of another way?
I like that.
You can.
You can carry the ones, but we'll fashion way.
Oh, yeah, the kids come up with way more creative stuff.
And they can do like, it's fun to see them also in our, it's fun because by the end of the year, they'll be naming their strategy, and you'll see it right now too, but they'll, like, oh, I'm going to use the number line, or I'm going to use my, the 4th grade teacher that wasn't sure about this number line. She was like, one of my students said, and I cannot think of what it was, but it was, I'm going to say brilliant, but it was like, oh, okay. But yeah, it's fun to see them able to use that academic language, knowing how they're coming up with it. So we have, again, it's very doom and gloom. If you look at the OS5, but it's not doom and gloom if you come into the building. We've
I
got
did
some.
have a question. I have always thought children are very bright and they're like sponges.
Mhm.
I mean, they can just learn. Are they catching up as quickly as anticipated? Just a question.
We had a conversation actually at dinner tonight. We're seeing the growth.
Oh, like Kevin.
Uh-oh.
We're seeing the growth. What we're not like, so at the end of the year, they're, here. So we would think that we're starting this August, they should be here, and they're not. We're not, it's not transferring. What is the word? Yeah, I mean,
Like, I think that in the springtime, all of us saw huge growth in our building, right? Like, as we're in school, we were able to have a better impact on them. And so we did see great growth last year. It came back, and our data in the fall time doesn't show that growth. But when we're looking at the data right now, we're looking at where students are supposed to be by the end of the school year. So it makes sense that they're able to drop back. Like, I don't know, when you look at the school improvement plan, I can't give you exact numbers, but like KRV went from 9% of students on grade level last year in fall to like 40% in the spring. Well, that's great that we were able to do. And now we came back in the fall, and now we're at 12% again. So like we keep coming back. We keep coming back, and we got to figure out how to hold that and sustain that so that we can continue to make that fall growth stay on grade level and build up from there and not having to keep jumping back down next year. If that makes sense. I don't know. I kind of talk about it in my school.
do you have any questions for
I guess I'm coming up.
Kevin's last now?
One of the great things about Number Talks, and I'll kind of talk about it a little bit too, it's something that we're focusing on as well, is that any student, I mean, if you go into a classroom and you put that expression, given the appropriate grade level, but put that expression on the board, any student should have access to it. So any student, no matter where their level's at, if they're, well below grade level or way above grade level, they have access to be able to solve this. So they can use whatever strategy they need to use. Maybe they use the algorithm, maybe they use, the 10s and the 1s or a number line. So they should have access to be able to do that. So that's, I think, the great thing about it is that it's like all students have access to it. So Okay. I'll talk about mine. We kind of talked about the data. And you guys will see it in the charts. At KRV, we don't have SBA data, so we don't have the end of the year state data that starts in 3rd grade and then goes up. So we really just look at our iReady data. That's our big piece that we look at. This year we've been able to look at ARC, the new reading stuff, but we just have the fall piece on it, and we haven't seen, not that we haven't seen growth, but the data is not showing us growth quite yet because we're not in it enough. So I'm hoping that in January we'll be able to come back and look at that. So in the school improvement plan that I'm going to give you guys is just has iReady. So you'll see kind of 3 years of the iReady trends. The 20 to 21 school year. That's when our kiddos were virtual in the fall time, and then they were back in hybrid model in the spring. So that data shows a little bit different because those kiddos were at home in those assessments compared to being in the classroom with their teachers. And then the last 2 years look pretty similar in where we're at. So 2 big things for KRV, we did the same thing. We meet with our leadership team, we look at our data. We celebrate in the springtime. That's the first step. Celebrate in the springtime our success. And then in August, we bring our leadership team back together and we start looking at that and kind of diving deeper into it. We identified that for math, that number sense was one of our lower areas based on iReady data. So then we ask ourselves, what can we do this year to help build up that number sense for students? It's numbers and operations, and so we are committing to doing number talks. So the grade levels have made commitments to number talks. I think 3 times a week is how often they do them. And then the other thing that they have committed to is some math routines. So that looks a little bit different at each grade level, but like 2nd grade's really working on place value. So that if they're working on place value and that's a routine that they're doing, weekly or whatever, that's going to continue to build up that number sense. So that's kind of our hope in those, kind of putting those routines in, is that will build students' number sense up, and then we'll see the impact on the data from there. For reading, one of our low areas was phonics and vocabulary. And so with the new art curriculum, one of the things that we knew that we were lacking was a systematic phonics instruction. And so that has been something that has been able to be brought into those classrooms, and our teachers are really enjoying it. They're seeing a lot of student growth out of those. So that's something that they do pretty much daily, just manipulating sounds and blends and word work with prefixes and suffixes and those kinds of things. So with that being our low area in iReady, again, we're kind of hoping that will help to build that, build up the knowledge of the students and help make an impact on our data to bring that up. For reading as well, we've kind of changed some of our practices. There's been a lot of talk about inclusion in the classrooms. And so we've been looking at how we can better serve our students within the classroom and not have students being pulled out so much. So pushing in a lot of those services. And so our reading intervention teachers are pushing into classrooms. Some of our resource rooms sped, some of those practices and interventions are also getting pushed into the classroom. So that's something that we're trying out this year. So far it's been working pretty well. So we're hoping that will help. And then the last little piece I have on here is that the leadership team and building, like on our Wednesday site days in January, I think I kind of talked about this. We'll kind of come back together after we do our mid-year check-in on iReady and look at the data and see what it's doing and see if we need to make any adjustments as we move forward. So that's where we're at. Any questions?
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm gonna basically build off of Jody's with the effect sizes. We also with our whole staff, the whole staff at West Rand went through the visible learning for literacy last year. And visible learning itself has an effect size of 1/4400. So it has a high effect size. So my staff was like, well, what is visible learning? And when you start thinking about that, you think, okay, so visible learning, kids are going to create something so the teacher can see what they're learning. And it's actually the visible learning is the impacting the student, and seeing the student has that opportunity to evaluate where they are, where they need to go, and see how that learning is growing over time. So the first book that we went through is the literacy book, and there are several strategies that the staff has picked out for that. This year, we're going to go through the visible learning for mathematics. So we're going to have this, the first couple of years, we're building capacity, building understanding, knowledge of what visible learning is. And then we're going to start getting into specifics. Feedback is one of those. That will be the next rollout, and that has a very high effect size. So that's kind of the background information about the books. For ELA, again, just like Jody, I want to thank you for purchasing the curriculum. One other thing that you guys worked on was a policy for RTI. We still need more work around that, building our capacity of really what that looks like. But in the book, it also addresses that. So there's a universal screener, quality core instruction, which the reading curriculum now addresses that. We all three can have conversations about what is happening with our students, which we've never had before, which is great because we're all doing the same thing. There's progress monitoring. This program has that built in through the toolkits and the school pace, which is we can check that data on it. Actually, we get emails on a daily basis on how teachers are monitoring those kids in the classroom, the data that's entered in. I can pull it up. And we pull it up during our PLCs, and we talk about the kids that are at different levels and what we're doing with those. Today, we met with our reading specialists and each teacher to work on the schedule, which will, all of us have schedules based on those small groups, and reorganizing those so that there's more efficient as we go forward. The effect size for the RTI model is 1 in 700. So it has a very high effect size. The last part is the supplemental intensive interventions. They actually suggest that those interventions and that supplemental intervention is happening in the classroom. And that's what's going on now. Those small groups, those strategic groups are happening in the classroom, not pulled out. One thing about that is that those small groups, they have to be student-centered, meaning what is the need of the student? That again, the program that we have now addresses the specific need of the student. What is the difference? The other was ability grouping. Everybody that reads at this level will be grouped together. But you might be at the same level as I am, but you have different needs than I do. And so this is the shift in thinking, is that now we're addressing we might be still in that same level, but our group is based on the needs that we have, similar needs. And that has been a shift. And I don't know if I can speak for the other principals, but it has been a shift in my building. And one of the things with those small strategic groups is it has an effect size of 4,900, which is good. Remember, 4/10 is where we want to be or higher. But those small groups have to be flexible and not fixed, meaning a kid can't just be put in this level and they stay there the whole time. And this is very flexible. It constantly is changed to the point where when we went to launch the toolkits, the teachers are like, they're already growing. So the groups that they had created are already changing over a week or 2 week period, because what they're doing with them is very intentional.
Sounds like a good problem.
It is a good problem. That's what we're saying, but they're like, it's already, I made this whole schedule, now it's changing. we're going to continue with the Hagerty, which addresses phonemic awareness as our foundation. I have data that I shared with Deanna. It was my growth goal last year as a principal. The data that we had coming back from Hagerty was fantastic. Phonemic awareness has a 7,500th effect size. So after reading the Visible Learning for Literacy book, there were several strategies that the staff voted on. And the first one we're going to hit, working with Eric and the ESD, are thinking maps. And thinking maps is a way to, in short, to activate prior knowledge, to dig deeper into a concept and then transfer it. So you might be analyzing cause and effect at the end, but it takes the student through the whole process using graphic organizers to help assist and scaffold their learning. But as you go along, you activate prior knowledge. That's the first map with a circle map. Then you do a bubble map, which starts to identify different things. So if you're studying, say, monkeys or something, you start to identify the different things with monkeys. Then you might compare two different types of monkeys. So each step with the graphic organizers takes the student deeper to the point where they're doing a transfer. And each step has a writing frame. So at the end of it, it's tied to writing. When you go through the Visible Learning for Literacy, deep understanding doesn't happen until kids write about it. That's the big transfer piece. So with thinking maps, activating prior knowledge is 9,800s, graphic organizers 6,500s, concept mapping 6,400s, note taking, which is helping them to take notes as even a kindergartner, is 5/10. Those are all high effect sizes. And so what we're trying to do with thinking maps is that we're giving these kids these tools so that when they go to, say, for example, we're looking at the WIDA, they have to compare and contrast on the WIDA. I know what tool I can use. And getting to that independent stage where they can just use that tool. But starting in kindergarten and moving all through fifth grade is really trying to establish those tools. And eventually when they get to older grades, when they're having to analyze and comprehend, they can start to pull those tools out. In math, like I said, we're doing the Visible Learning for Mathematics. That's the book study this year. We're going to continue with our word routines, which problem solving has a 6,800 of effect size. With ELL, having a core curriculum in Spanish, this is the first time that we've had it. And it's mirrors the monolingual English classrooms. So there's still that collaboration. And that was one of our goals going through when we were selecting a curriculum. So that wasn't something different. The thinking maps are still going to help our ELL students, and actually it's going to enhance that because it gives them those tools that they can fall back on and those scaffolds. We hired a bilingual reading specialist this year. First time that we have a reading specialist going in and working with small groups. We had it in our monolingual English classrooms, but not in our bilingual classrooms. And then we also have that same person is also doing our ELD strategies with the kids that are still in the monolingual classroom. So they're using EL Achieve, which Eric has purchased for the ELD teacher. Any questions? We'll dig into the data next time.
What is RTI again?
That's response to interventions.
Okay. And unless I misheard you, did you say a policy?
Yeah, there was a policy, and basically we kicked it back to teachers and principals to define what it meant at a building level. And so it's
Now I remember. Yep.
the reality is it's a system-wide response. And there's board policy that governs it being in place.
Mhm.
It's a system-wide response to, how you're gonna intervene, how you're gonna screen students. And
Okay. Now I
everything
remember.
else. Does everything else that Kevin said make sense, some sense, or can we help with that? So, go ahead.
The WIDA.
it's a language test, for our ELL students.
What's the-
Wisconsin, something. It was the ELPA, WELPA 21. But they continue to change them. But the basis of it is a test, reading, writing, speaking, and listening.
In English.
In English for students, language and comprehension skills. So where the struggle is when students get into the middle level, and we can talk a little bit more about this, but there's a bottleneck at L3s for a number of different reasons, that when they get students, because of immersion learning, can hold basic interpersonal communication skills at the elementary level just due to immersion. But as they start to progress, and they start to access content, vocabulary, and they call it CALPS, or cognitive academic language proficiency skills. Students really struggle when they start to get into the middle and high school level because it's so vocabulary rich and content specific. And so there tends to be a bottleneck there. So yeah, part of our dual language programs help address that.
And to go back to the curriculum, why that curriculum is so important, and Matt's addressing kind of the academic language. The program's designed to build vocabulary from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. Which if we were to take that on, that's really hard to do, to know the content that's being applied and what vocabulary words to really have those kids focus on. And this program already is very intentional with that. So that when they do get older, they have some prior knowledge and some academic language that will help when they get older to address some of those areas.
So the WIDA is the world-class instructional design and assistance.
Yeah. That's
And
right.
throw in the C because
Yeah.
it didn't make it flow, so they hyphenated it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We're just doing element, was Denny coming up?
No.
We're just doing elementary
No,
tonight.
Yep, just
Yeah, that's what I
elementary.
thought. So next on our list would be strategic planning data.
So we're putting together kind of the components of a strategic plan. One of the pieces that we wanted to start out with was basically some information. And so looking back on our commitment to data-driven decision-making, the question always is, what did you use as the foundation for making a decision? So you heard Mr. Gilman just talk about effect sizes. And so what he's making his decision off of is that this researcher, John Hattie, did these what are called meta-analysis studies, and did statistical calculations about the effect that certain strategies have. We in the district make decisions based upon numbers, but they're different numbers. They're student outcomes, things that are taking place within the district. And so we pulled what we thought might be the most relevant. If you haven't had an opportunity to look at it, please kind of start to review it, maybe right now or a little bit later. But if you have any questions, we can kind of go through that. And then one of the questions I have for you as the board is what else would you like to see included is data. We're working on some perceptual data that we can include from different focus groups to pair with this. But this was just to get some initial thoughts, impressions, to give you kind of an initial snapshot of the district and what's going on.
Any questions?
Why was the mental health box blank?
I just haven't put the data in, that's why it's a draft.
I know this is, and the only question I had is it's based on 20 and 21 data, which
Because
is,
that's what we have.
we don't have 21, 22.
We don't have it in this way to make it easy to present. We will
Okay.
soon. So if we haven't presented it yet, we'll just update it. So that's the most current that's on the report card right now or in our system.
And the overall district data, that's the bar 2018-2019 school year,
Maybe,
very small, the bottom of that box in the middle.
well, yeah,
Which one?
are you talking about the?
The middle box.
The center square, I call it the center square.
The middle box.
Oh, yeah, that's a screenshot. So it's a screenshot from the report card. I could adjust it and do it differently. And that's one of the reasons it's in draft, so people can give feedback and we can make adjustments.
But that's the year that the data is from.
If that's what it says, yes, but it should, unless I screenshotted the wrong data.
It's like 18, 19.
Because there should be, no, that's actually correct because they kind of didn't, like, we had the COVID year and they kind of didn't, there was no SBA. And then they didn't really count,
18, 19.
like, they're kind of not counting. We're gonna get last year's, but we didn't have the year before. So that is the most current, like, what they would consider comprehensive data that's published.
Some of it's
So far.
2021.
So the end of last year's will come out. It's out, but not on the report card. So.
Any more questions?
Maybe one other one, but maybe I'm a little confused. So you have all these different categories within this, which is kind of a great snapshot of. But once the strategic plan starts to kind of mold these, each one of these boxes are going to be its own separate detailed description behind it.
So the
Or-
idea in the strategic planning is to present information so people have a clear picture kind of starting where we're at. So this is kind of we're trying to do kind of like I said, a one pager that'll talks about kind of where our kindergartners start at, kind of how we do, where our kids are on track for reading in third grade. Where we have the gaps, there's more gaps. There'll probably be some other gap information we include in there. Some of the healthy use survey, there's a lot of healthy use surveys, so it's kind of figuring out and working with the counselors trying to figure out which things are the most important to include. And then we would do some anecdotal data from surveys and stuff on the back. So because when we're doing the strategic plan, we might have community people or parents, we don't want to overload them with a whole bunch of detailed data, but you want a snapshot. So that's the idea. So in our work that we've been doing and preparing, these these will reflect into some categories like around instruction, around leadership, so we'll have some categories, school culture, that we will focus on and set goals around, but this is the data they'll be able to use. So like if we're talking about instruction, then if you look at this, you could find some things that we'd want to work on as far as instruction. The anecdotal data might provide more information about culture or about leadership, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What, you bring up a great point, right? And so one of the things that we might want to do is have current data are important. But I think historic data are actually more relevant in this conversation, right? Because if you have historic deficiencies, then that actually should be brought forward when you're looking globally and developing strategies to address it, right?
Mhm.
And so I think current information is important, but we might want to peer into the past just for the sake of discussing, like, what are some current, what are some historic areas that Prosser struggles with?
And it works in both directions, because like the ninth grade on track on the bottom left, in 2021, this is 2021 data, which is the most recent that we have, and this all is calculated by OSPI. We had 42% of students on track at the end of ninth grade. Well, traditionally, we've been in the 65 to 70% range. That was a big COVID year. So I think in some cases you want to look back for both reasons. There is some account for COVID that may be a different issue we need to address then. We know that these students as freshmen in 20 and 21 who are still in our high school, we have over half the kids that failed the class. So then what are we doing to make sure that those kids are on track, going to be able to graduate on time? And if they're not, they have to have an extended graduation rate, then that's fine if they need another year, but how do we get them to graduation? So I think a lot of it, the advanced track gifted, that's a conversation we've had about offering challenging courses for kids. Well, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we had 7% of kids getting dual credit. We're in the 70s now. That's amazing. So there's some of those things. Can we still grow? Do we want every Prosser High School kid to walk out with at least one dual credit? Sure, let's do it. They're in classes, let's do it. So I think that it is trying to give a balanced view, like lay the skunk on the table if there's a skunk, but also look at what's going well, or how do we want to build on things that are going well, and how can we improve on the things that we need to improve on.
Any more questions? All right, thank you, Dana. So next is the winter weather report. I assume that's Ami.
Yeah, and so we brought Ami, and just to give kind of a brief snapshot of how those decisions are made. I'll just say they're not easy. These calls are made in time. We haven't had a bus go off the road. We always try and operate in the safest conditions. It can be difficult if you call a cancellation. Of course, the sun usually comes out and melts the snow. And if you don't cancel, it seems to be super cold and get worse. And so we have done things like call school the night before if we know it's going to be bad. And we've also tried to work hand in hand with the city to try and get their, most accurate information. But she just wanted to kind of walk through the process. I know that Yakima just had some snow, and we're getting into that time of year that potentially we might have to make snow calls. And so I always feel like this is kind of a yearly thing that I always feel like it's good for the board to say, at least we know the process of how those decisions are made.
Well, I'll start off with saying my mechanics have gone through all the snowplow trucks, my truck, and all the other vehicles, and they're all done their winter inspection. They're ready to go and roll out. My mornings are starting to shift from later to earlier. So at 3:30, I'm up looking at weather, looking at my text, because I'm in a group text with Grandview ESD up all the way up to Yakima and Wenatchee. And then I'm also in the Benton County text from all directors. We are all talking weather, everything, working, sending out information. Hey, I checked my roads. This is what they look like. And we're always constantly keeping in contact while we're out checking roads. By 4 o'clock, I'm in my truck driving the district. I work with Raul and Patterson. He helps me up on the hill. And then we have parts of Grandview that we interact, and we take turns of who's going out to those sections to look at. Or he'll say, hey, it was kind of dicey. I'm not going to run it. I'll go make sure I get over there and check. I'm also, while I'm out driving, I have a long notepad. So depending if we're in the city or the county, I'm calling them, the road department, saying, hey, if we run today, is there any way you can get this sanded or salted by this time? This is when my buses hit it. And I work with them very closely every day. And then again, it's so hard to tell because our district's different in that our first bus leaves at 5:30. So we've got to make that call where other districts don't have to go 68 miles to their first stop. So they're able to wait longer. So we're trying to make that decision based on what the weather report says it's going to continue to do during morning pickup. And that's sometimes where the calls get a little tricky. Do we wait? Do we go? And then, of course, our weather changes in an instant. So it could be okay and just foggy. And then by 6:30, when the buses are all knee deep in their morning route, it changes and gets really bad. But I want to say my drivers are professional. We talk about it. We train. We go over. Our buses are all equipped with OnSpots, which are the automatic chains. And we go through and we show the new drivers, okay, this is how you use them. This is situational, and make sure that they are fully okay with using those chains. And then depending on whether we do a 2-hour delay, we cancel school, or we go, is when I go home and take a nap. And then if we're in school or we do a 2-hour delay, I will go refresh my coffee and I'm back out driving the roads at 7 to make sure that when we leave at 8 to get out and go, they're still okay. If we go to school on time, then I'm still out there. If I'm not driving a route, I'm out there available. I have my mechanics ready to go with de-icer in hand. saying, hey, are the buses fogging up? Do we need to get somebody out there to spray de-icer on your windows to keep them open and clear? So you'll sometimes see, Daniel, our favorite place to come is right here at the entrance to the high school, because we can get, all but 4 buses right there, get them sprayed down so there's no ice buildup and the windows clear out for that. And then I'll take that little nap during the middle of the day, and then I'm back out on the roads 2 hours before we leave in the afternoon, double checking, triple checking that, and working with the county if something has built up or there's been an accident or roads have been closed. We'll work on getting those all changed and figured out so we can get the kids home.
Now, the levy is a great reminder that we extend into Clickitat County. So if you look at the size of where we bus, if you go out to Whitstrand, out by Kiona Benton School District, out towards Mabton to Grandview, up to Patterson, weather can vary within that busing range. And so it's tough to try and be all places at the same time. Is another challenge that we have. And then of course there's, like Ami said, there's multiple conversations going on early in the morning between superintendents, between transportation directors. But ideally, everybody calls at the same time in your area. We've gone out sometimes, and even though everybody around us is running, we've canceled it at times just because we felt like it was right for our district. So yeah, we do our best to do what's right and operate under safe conditions. I guess we can always be more conservative if that's a call that kind of some direction that the house can provide. I really try and trust Ami's judgment a lot of times. I had a transportation director once upon a time in my career said, you as a superintendent have the right to override me, but you'll be looking for another transportation director because that means you don't trust my decision. And so, you try and work hand in hand, and usually you see the same things. And so it's not that big of an issue. Where it gets kind of crazy is when you have buses already out and freezing rain comes along right at the end or something like that. So, and in that case, you try and do your best to get kids to school or communicate with parents that you're going to try and pull back. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you.
Of course.
I have a question. So when you make that decision, how does the communication go out? Do you call the
I
district?
call
office?
Matt and I
Okay,
talk to Matt and then Matt sends it out.
And then-
Okay.
Yeah,
And
and
then
so,
you're me.
yeah, usually Sean's involved with that, and it does a all call website, and social media.
So it's on social media, robocall, email, the app. Do they use the app
Yeah.
for that?
The app is new. We'll be using that.
No, the Flash Alert app. I think we
Yeah.
can about Flash Alert. Yeah.
Or Flash, so we use Flash Alert.
Yeah, because once the message goes out, that's like the news, it goes to the news media, all of that at once.
And I typically do it in an order, so I notify staff first, then I notify news media, then I send out an email, and then when I update the website, it sends out a text message. And if I do it in order, that way there's about 2 minutes in between each one.
Snow days are the only days in history where any kid under the age of 15 watches the morning news.
Yeah.
I will guarantee it.
Staff is first because we have people that commute in from different
Some
areas.
come earlier.
Do we send out info, like I would say around this time of year to all the parents, like this is where you need to be looking, this is where you need to be checking? Has
I
that
do.
gone
In
out?
fact, I sent that out last week.
Oh,
because
great.
I saw snow was in the forecast for this week.
Yeah.
I send out an email that tells parents to make sure that they update their phone number and skywords. Tell them how to download the app, how to take care of Flash Alert if they want to enroll in that as well. And that went out last week. And it's also got a list of all the stations. So Flash Alert is really nice because when I post it to Flash Alert itself is what notifies, I don't know, there's like 60 stations between all the radio stations and the TV stations. So, and what I communicate to the parents lists all those media outlets.
Have you had any impact in services of Benton County roads moving from Prosser to Kennewick?
No, because I have cell phones.
Okay.
Yeah, I have cell phone numbers, so. And then I have 2 ex-drivers that work for the county, so they'll call me when they're out with the plows overnight and tell me what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks,
Thank
Tommy.
All right, guys, that brings us to the consent items.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent items as presented.
I would, before you do that, sorry. In the minutes, I think, and it's petty, but I think it's important. To approve the agenda, it wasn't me that made the motion, I did the second. I had Peggy listed as making, I had it flipped around. That's at least how I remember it. I could be wrong.
Okay.
I don't think I have them with me either.
So I asked if you, I remember asking if you amended your motion and you said yes.
Oh, yeah.
Fair enough. So do we want to pull it and change it or just make a motion with it amended?
Well, I would make sure I'm right first.
I think we need to check that. And I have another one. It's in Jeannie's report. You talked about the new Thrive person, but it's not, the role isn't president, right?
Executive
Yeah. I think we need to correct that. The new president. But you have officers. They're okay. So it should be maybe changed to executive.
Should we just pull this until
We can,
next meeting?
yeah, we're probably gonna, and this will come up later. We're gonna need a special meeting for approving a couple things. And so we can save it and make those adjustments and then do the special meeting.
Yeah.
So I make a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of the minutes for the October 26th meeting.
Or, yeah, to table it. until
Tables,
next
yeah.
meeting. Yeah.
The approval of the, yeah. And I'll second.
All right, all in favor of the consent items as revised? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it's just as likely that I wrote it down wrong and nobody can read my chicken scratch, so. All right, that brings us to action items, payroll and vouchers.
I'll make a motion, we approve the vouchers and payroll as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor of approval, payroll and vouchers, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. And then we were gonna change, what was it on the Thrive? The wording for, I forget already. It wasn't president, it was,
Executive director.
okay.
And there was a couple homecomings that weren't capitalized and some were capitalized. So if we're in there, capitalize all.
All right, so a motion to approve the Mustang Thrive 2023 out-of-state travel request with the wording changed from president to executive director.
I'll make that
Wait.
motion.
Wait, hold on.
Hang on.
Back up, that was for the minutes. Not the action item.
I thought the action item, wasn't that what you said, that it was listed as president and,
No, in our minutes. when we were
Yeah.
talking about-
oh,
Jeannie in her report said, talked about the.
I
Thrive
completely, I thought you meant it was in this, that it
Executive
was.
Director, not a president, it's a different role.
I thought it was in this that you
Because they
said
were-
it was misdone. My bad, sorry. All right,
But I do move to approve out-of-state travel request for Mustang Thrive Club members.
all right, well, I gotta scribble this part out now because I already made a note there. Okay. I misunderstood what you said. I thought it was in this. That it was,
Okay, we still like you, Andy.
well, I would question that judgment, actually. All right, do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second. Or you already,
that
I'm
third and
sorry.
fourth
one on over here? We got 3 of them.
All right, well, I'm giving it to Elisa. All in favor of approving the out-of-state travel, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, approval of the executive assistant contracts.
Move to approve the executive assistant contracts.
I'll second that.
I have a concern about the stipend, that can be cashed out for training and not used. It seems that that would incentivize being trained, like, okay, you can get training. Or you can take $1,500.
Yeah, that was basically a way to get to a deal in another contract. And this proposal mirrors the other, I'll say the executive, these are executive assistants, but they're exempt employees.
Yeah.
And so it mirrors that collective bargaining units language. I'll say that PDs for executive assistants don't always come along. And when they do, they may be out of state. And so if there is, of course, we would encourage them to go. But if not, then sometimes it's difficult to get there on only $1,500. Conference fees usually range to, I sent a kind of a conference proposal. I think for the conference fees alone, it was like $1,200 per person. So yeah, I understand that perspective. And so that was kind of the historic background of that.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor of approving the executive assistant contract, please say aye.
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 You didn't get all that.
Didn't I? Who didn't?
Me.
Oh, sorry.
That's the training purpose.
All right, so then we're on to resolution 15-22 declaring surplus equipment. Everybody had a chance to read through it?
Move to approve resolution 1522 declaring surplus equipment.
Second.
Lisa was a second? Okay. My wife keeps saying my hearing's going and I keep arguing. I just don't know why she says that. Okay, all in favor of, oh no, this has to be a resolution, has to be roll call, correct?
Correct.
All right. So we'll start at the end. Elisa?
Yay.
Jeannie?
Yay.
Peggy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, which takes us down to first reading of policy and procedure 3124. Removal / release of student during school hours. I know we've read through this, before. Has everybody had a chance to
Yes.
read through it?
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of policy and procedure number 3124.
Second.
Was there any questions, concerns, things that needed to be changed? Opinions?
We talked about at the work session in the procedure section A regarding law enforcement officers moving students without a warrant, and we were gonna check with legal
Yeah, we
to
did.
get follow-up. Okay.
Yeah, and so he said it looks all right. He didn't offer too much more than that.
So they really can come and without a warrant and
A law enforcement officer right now with changes in juvenile law can't even talk to a juvenile or hold them for probable cause. So I don't know that this would ever.
kind of
be
irrelevant
implemented.
then.
Seems like.
We can run it past him again.
Oh, it seems odd to me, but
And I can have him specifically look into that if the board.
well, if he looked at it once, ain't no sense in having him look at the same wording twice. So, all right, we have a first and a second. All in favor of approving this as first reading, please say aye.
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 So it'll come back at the next meeting for second final reading.
Should.
Well, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, first reading policy procedure 3246, restraint, isolation, and other use of reasonable force. Again, we read through it. Has everybody had a chance to take a good long read and think about this one?
Did we remove the waterboarding
I hope not.
language out of this?
What is, so you couldn't submerge a student or something like that? So
And I'm
Uh,
assuming you've already run this through our council also.
we did, yeah.
Then I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of policy and procedure number 3246, restraint, isolation, and other uses of reasonable force.
What does CPI stand for?
Crisis prevention intervention.
I'll second Andy. Some of it is hard to read.
Was there any concerns or?
I already said mine.
No, I'm just, they'll due diligence here. If I don't look up and see somebody say something, I seem to miss it, so. We all good?
Yeah.
All right, all in favor of first reading for policy 3246, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That finishes action items. Now we're down to discussion items. The first on the list is construction update.
Yeah, so Dan Purefoy is, he's calling in here. He should be online. Dan, are you there?
Is that it now?
Let me check here.
I don't see him in the list of people. I don't see Dan Purefoy in the list of people, in the list of participants.
You may have got knocked off.
Yeah.
Maybe you couldn't hear you, Matt.
It's that one.
Yeah.
I wanna say that 3601. Why I know this phone.
Yeah, what the? It's a number.
No, he's 368.
Hey, are
That
you
is
on?
him.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's him.
let me see if we can get you unmuted.
368. That's
Next one up.
Right above, yeah.
We're gonna tune you in here.
He's got to unmute himself.
He said I'm talking.
We can't hear him. He's not unmuted. I think he's probably on his phone. Yeah.
It's 0853 is the number, Blake.
He's gone now.
Unmuted in Zoom. And he's no longer connected to Zoom.
I can call, he can call speakerphone.
I mean, I can put my phone.
Let's see here.
And there are some pictures in the board packet of some of the statements.
Yeah,
In the meantime, if you. And until he gets on, I know we've been meeting with him quite often, you know, about all the different buildings. So obviously there's all the little tick list items, you know, at
Hey.
the different buildings.
Are you having trouble?
you think?
You disappeared. Before that, you haven't been on there for a while. Do you want to just do speakerphone and I can just get my phone over to Andy, but maybe that instead?
Well, I don't know if the people online, will people.
Okay,
We can
Set it right next to the speaker might work.
you're muted. So try again, okay? Bye. He's gonna try again.
We'll give him a minute and then we can.
In the meantime, while he gets on, so the high school is done from a construction perspective. There's still little, like the final inspection has to be done. There's a few small things, but at this point, from a financial perspective, we're not charging anything else to capital projects. It's all with our general fund. The other projects are nearing completion, a few small things left. We just submitted invoices for the state match up to date. And then obviously Whitstrand, we're moving along quickly with that one. So think he was just gonna give those updates, that he's putting together those lists of, you know, if there's any more missing windows or, there's some paint. and
Yeah, there he is. He's on now.
There you are.
Can we hear you now?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Hey, there you go.
We can. Got me? Okay, gosh, sorry about that. It's embarrassing. I don't know if that was on my end or not, but
Well, absolutely.
yeah, of course. Okay, are you ready for me or did I interrupt now?
No, have at it.
Go for it.
Okay, I guess I'll just kick it off with a general update on the 3 schools and then just turn it over to you guys for any questions that you have. Starting with Wickstrand, right now roofing is ongoing and we're actually scheduled for completion on that this Friday. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing roughing is ongoing. We've got brick veneer installation underway and that should be completed actually in the next 2 weeks. The site work's continuing with curbs being set this week and we've got a target pave date of Friday or Monday. The fire storage tank for your suppression system actually is going to get poured in the next 2 weeks. We're on track for cover inspection on the walls in 2 weeks, which will be followed immediately by hanging and taping of drywall. I mean, in summary on Wickstrand, overall, that project is on schedule and it's tracking really well for a July occupancy and potentially getting done a little bit earlier if we don't have any hiccups along the way. Moving over to Prosser Heights and KRV, the commissioning and the testing of the HVAC systems will start next week, and that will typically take around 2 weeks for these size of schools. Once we complete that testing, we'll issue the complete issues log, and until we do the testing, we won't be able to give you like a quite accurate estimate, but right now we're hoping to have everything complete on that front by Christmas break. The punch list work's ongoing at both schools, but really currently there's limited crews kind of working right now as school is going. And you got some people coming after hours, but really right now the commitment we have from the GC is the bulk of the work is going to be completed over Christmas break once the buildings are clear of the students. That's basically where we're at right now. I'm sure you guys have specific questions.
Any questions, guys?
I have one on Keene Riverview, and I drove by it probably last week sometime, and I noticed the playground area is still in disarray. What's the process for that? Unless I'm wrong. And
Yeah, so
between now and then.
No.
No, you're right. So the primary driver on that, obviously, and I'm pretty sure you guys are up to speed on the playground equipment issue, right? Where it was the health department came in and they deemed it to be not code compliant, and then we had the district's insurance rep who has a playground specialist inspected it as well, and he found it to, you know, basically be like a liability. So we had to pretty much pull out the majority of all the playground equipment. And that basically had a ripple effect into like the final seating, you know, putting the playground surfacing in. So right now we're actually kind of on hold until, basically it's coming down to funding for your playground equipment. Obviously that was something that was never really originally planned for. And we're pretty much right now waiting until we can kind of reconcile the contingency on both of the elementaries, because this actually pertains to Heights as well, because some of their equipment had to go. It's not to the extent of KRV. But right now, that's where this is sitting. We're waiting to see how the contingency pans out for the 2 schools to see basically what you guys have left over as potential to spend on future equipment. And I know talking to Matt and Deanna, there's also some grants out there that we might be looking to apply for. We thought of it like there's something through OSBI called an emergency repair grant that comes out. You can apply for that starting in January. So there's a few other funding options out there that we're looking to, try to come up with some additional funding. But that's the crux to that issue there and why the site didn't get buttoned up.
Okay. Anything else?
Will there be more exterior lights at KRV? I noticed across from the park, the Boys and Girls Club side, it is dark there. After the meeting tonight, I'll drive by that way. The other side where the pickup is pretty well lit, but it's pretty black when you drive by that. Will there be more exterior lights on that side?
Dan, there's no plan to add any more exterior lighting at Riverview, is there?
There's not, but depending upon what time you were there, it's a possibility that the lights weren't on yet, because the lights are on a daylight harvester as well as a program. So it is possible that we may have some lights out there, whether it's like an exterior mounted one on the surface or, an actual pole light. But at this point, if it's not installed, that's the extent of the lighting that you're getting. But again, there is a possibility that wasn't on when you were there. What time was it, just out of curiosity?
I don't know what time it was, but it was dark. It was, and it wasn't twilight. I mean, it was
Okay,
dark.
so
So that's why it came
it
to
was
my.
pitch black. Okay, and at that point, the lights
Yeah,
should be on.
to be lit.
Are you talking about on?
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, I noticed how, I think the same week Heights is lit up. It's bright and it's just the side for the bus drop off is lit, but the side across from the Boys and Girls Club. So like this time of year, you know, right now when it's dark so early, there's no light or very few lights on the exterior side of that. Something all
Street lights out right there.
no, there's
I agree, like, I get to work pretty early in the morning, and before daylight savings, I was getting to work in the dark. most
Yeah.
Days, and it was dark along that front side. I think part of it, like Heights, their bus loop area, their front office is all in the same area, ours is separated, so we're a little bit, like, the bus loop and all of the staff parking and stuff is on the opposite side of our front office.
is there a way to remedy it before the project's completed? Or when we're talking about playground equipment and reconciling the budget?
And there's a way to remedy anything, but I would say we would want Fowler to finish this project. If we're doing something different, we explore that with a different option.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I apologize, but I think that was Jesse speaking. I was kind of hearing half of it. It was cutting in and out. But at this point in time, if it's not already something that's built into the project scope, I would not recommend adding anything into their contracted scope. So it's something I would say to small works after the fact, because anything you do now is just going to extend any overhead and general conditions that they have, and it's going to come with a significant premium. You know, obviously being this a 2-year project, you know, most of the subs, they are just dying to get done with the project. You know, the majority of the subs on there basically are saying they didn't even make any money given the timing and everything that happened with materials. So it'd be, I mean, long story short, it would be a serious premium to put a light in right now through the contract.
Is there electric, electric that we can, so say for instance, we finish it up and so we don't have to pay for change orders. We contract with like a master electrician. Is there electricity running out there that we could, you know, put some bright light in there?
Yeah, generally speaking, I don't have to double check the plans to confirm that, but generally speaking, there will be spare conduits that will be run out to the site circuits for the light poles, and we might be able to piggyback off of those and extend the trenching to like a new site light. There might even be the option of just you add like some floodlights on the exterior of the building as well. So there's definitely options.
I can look at it tomorrow and see like what exterior lights, I can't picture it, so.
There's
Like
lots
what
of parking
exterior
there.
what exterior lights we have out there, and also if they are actually. It could be just some of them are working.
That's what we do.
Well, yeah, EJ Miller was at one point a place where like teenagers after hours would congregate and there was a lot of activity over around there. And so I don't know that it would be a bad thing to have it well lit. Just so I mean, there are students at the skate park. There's still things that go on in and around that area late at night. So
We're gonna have a holiday program. Holiday program. It's gonna be.
Yeah,
dark.
there.
School park there.
It's at the old school, but.
And so were the parking stalls completely dark? Was the sidewalk dark? I guess I probably should just drive
Yeah,
by
I mean,
one of
it
these.
was
meetings and
dark,
take a
like I
look.
was standing in the closet dark.
Because there's also, I mean, there's potential for doing some type of a solar setup too. There's a lot of different lights, you know, that can run off a solar if it was a location where we you know, it would be basically cost prohibitive to get, you know, a circuit out there. So there are a few different options we could look at.
I like that. Okay,
Definitely one to keep in mind though, and sometime, well, sooner rather than later, hopefully get that taken care of.
yeah.
Get a couple lights up.
And maybe they're there and they're just not turned on. That would be.
Well, it is possible. Who knows?
And the
Yeah, I'm hoping that's I'm hoping that's the problem, you know. Sometimes with those systems that will happen, especially when it's on a scheduling software.
I don't remember the last time I drove by there at night, so. Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir. Have a wonderful evening.
Okay. Yeah, you too. Take care.
All right, now we're on to reports. Deanna.
I have some, I'm gonna be interviewing probably next week for our new transitional kindergarten teacher. We have about 10 applications. And then we'll be doing the parent educator as well. We have almost as many kids registered right now, and I know they're not already, or at least expressing interest. I shouldn't say registered, expressing interest to fill the class already. So I know we'll have some more, and it'll be open, and we will start doing that selection process at the beginning of December and notifying parents if their student's been placed, and then they'll have to do the full registration process that we do in our district. Working with Jessie and her team on making that all work at Riverview with a schedule that's already established and making some adjustments. I just, speaking to how we're trying to get back to normal, I was able to do classroom visits and some more AVID classes at the middle school a couple weeks ago and the high school today. And actually earlier this week, our first AVID kid got their very early college acceptance letter, and a whole bunch of them got more today. One student had 4 college acceptance letters today. So that's always exciting. So our seniors are gonna start getting those rolling in. So it's a good thing to ask, kids that are seniors, hey, what are you doing after high school? Maybe they're not going to college, but what are they doing? And what's their plan? Our migrant department and district office participated in the downtown trick or treat. I know they had a really good time with that and gave away a lot of big bags of candy. Our principals already talked about our ARC implementation, but the strategic grouping, I can see every single student, every single teacher in our district and how those students are or not growing. As far as their reading, the notes that the teacher's doing when they're doing their conferring and tracking the students' progress, and it is making a difference. The strategic grouping is just started and are already seeing 0.2 of a year growth in 15 days. That's a lot. So that's good news. And then the last thing is, some of you know that I'm volunteer all my free time to coaching high school volleyball with my daughter. Last night was a grudge match. My oldest daughter coaches for Grandview and my younger daughter coaches for Prosser. And we beat Grandview quite soundly last night. So the girls are still alive. There's 4 teams left, and tomorrow we go to Ellensburg to play SELA, which is a very good team. The girls keep it going the way they're going. So that's exciting.
Thank you, Dana. Amy?
So I checked in the status of our P-card program, and we don't have the credit approval yet. So maybe another couple of weeks or so. And they said it does normally take a while, so it's not a huge concern, but that's why it's not implemented yet, is we're just waiting for that credit approval, and then we'll roll that out. And then at random, I don't know if it's a question platform or if I need to bring it back. But there was discussion that the board did not want any expenses charged on, like, there's a specific activity code or it's a program subprogram and an activity code that goes directly to the board expenses. Does anyone care if I actually use that appropriately? This was like from years ago. So as I was doing the fiscal year and the final reporting, it was just something that we can, if we use this code, we can claim it here. And I can get into the nitty-gritty details if you want to. But I was advised that a couple of years ago, the board didn't want any expense on that board of directors program subprogram.
As long as it's used appropriately, I don't think anybody would have an issue. The problem was, there was a problem.
Oh, okay.
But the answer from me is, I don't care. It'll be fine as long as it's appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as it's used appropriately, I don't care.
Okay. This is specific to legal fees when it comes to policy interpretation.
Okay.
But it's such a small amount. Unfortunately, we have to take that as invoices. But it was just something I was like, well, let me just ask and see if that's okay.
Maybe we
can
get
start
cookies
using-
back again. Cookies back again, maybe the ones with M&Ms in them.
Cookies back.
Yeah.
Well, cookies that bring.
Insider coffee, right? Yeah,
Like, I don't know.
So that was,
So it's like, if you're okay with that. then we can-
cut that.
Yeah, I'm fine. Everybody else cool with it?
Otherwise, we're finishing up the last couple steps of the fiscal year report. And then I'll be able to get you the last 3 months or so of financials by the end of December. Just because I don't know what we're doing with the board meeting around Thanksgiving. So the December meeting.
Matt?
Deanna talked a little bit about community engagement pieces. We did do the downtown trick or treat, but Deanna and I also spoke at Rotary. And we were able to talk, just to give a brief construction update. I want to give a shout out to the guys on our grounds crew. They helped clean up after the windstorm and, we were ready to bounce back on Monday. There was no real significant damage. We had some fences down, trash cans over, some broken limbs, but they really did a great job on Saturday cleaning that up. Social media night, the 30th of this month, correct? So that's coming up. We still have some issues with social media and bullying. And so we're trying to get parents engaged and just inform them about some of the stuff that's going on.
What day was
What
it?
day was it?
The 30th.
The 30th will be
November
the
30th.
English presentation, and
What's
then the first will be the Spanish.
What time?
Right, I know the time.
Show up at
because,
5 and wait?
No, Angela Skeen's leadership class is going to, put on, some visual stuff out in the comments, and then we'll have oh my gosh, I can't even think. Then we'll have like a little passport thing, and then you'll go in and have a drawing, and so it's very exciting, and then pop it. But I'm trying to think of what time, you asked me what time. I want to say 6, because it's from 6 to 6:30 will be like the leadership kids, and then the presentation itself will be 6:30 to 7:30.
All right.
At high school then?
At the high school for the English, English presentation, but there was a conflict. And so then my building, it will be, the Spanish presentation will be done at Heights.
Next night, same night?
Same night, same time.
Okay,
Next
It'll be
night.
Wednesday and then the Thursday.
First is the
Next night,
Spanish.
next night, next night, same time.
so that's way different than same night, same time.
Yes, I apologize. So the last day of the month in November, the 30th, is that right? And then December 1st.
If that changes, you'll let us know.
I hope it doesn't. It's getting close. Okay, the turn. And then.
Is that with Yakima County
It's
Sheriff?
with
again?
Yakima Police
Okay,
Department.
that's perfect.
Detective Urban and Detective Medina will be back. And they actually approached me about this, so they're excited and they really liked their time with the community officer.
Thank you.
So there's a number of mandatory events that school districts have to recognize. And I believe we passed this policy this summer. One of them is Veterans Day, and so that's coming up. Each building will have their own assembly, and so we'll get you assembly times so that if you're interested, you can go and visit that. We have, sorry, what did I say?
Okay, tomorrow. They're tomorrow.
Wednesday.
I thought it was
tomorrow.
Friday.
There's no.
No, there's no school
no
tomorrow.
Friday.
Oh, man.
But HMS I know has veterans at 8:30 for snacks and coffee, like, pastries and coffee, and then assembly at 9. High school's assemblies at 11, Jody,
Mine is at
1. Jesse, the K2s don't usually do an assembly, they do an activity.
Yeah, in our library class, she's been doing an activity with all the kids as they come through library.
And then Kevin. There you go.
Thank you.
If any of the schools wants to invite a vet, there's one sitting right around the corner.
Yeah. Marine, the few the challenged, right, or something like that. Maybe I
Few
got
the
that one.
proud.
The few the
That's
proud.
invited to all assemblies, I believe, so you should go.
I'm sure it's challenging too.
Yeah.
So, there you go. And then we had a few student board reps apply. And so we're in the position where we can, at a special board meeting, interview those students. Usually we've done some of that work in executive session where we kind of debrief with the students. And then the last piece is I sent an email today, and we'll need to take action on it soon if the board decides in the affirmative. But it was around a professional development opportunity for security officers. And professional developments of this nature don't come along often. And so I would like to recommend that to the board to consider. It would involve some out-of-state travel, and kind of what I'm envisioning is we send a couple security officers to this conference, and then they can just bring back different information from vendors that they saw and neat things too. One of the areas that I think is important is to really extend, we have lockdown protocols in buildings. But just about a year ago, we had a bus driver in Pasco, who a guy from Richland drove across town, got on the bus, stabbed the bus driver in front of kids. And the bus driver tried to drive the bus and it crashed, and he died while on the job. And so kind of extending our safety and security program to transportation as well. We just finished GAP training, and that really secures the building. But to look at, to extend that and start talking about ways that we can, build our program out. I think that we're a leader in this area, and I like, our security officers to continue to have the opportunity to gain ideas and innovate. So.
All right, thank you. So if you guys would all make a point of reading through that email and getting back to them, that would be good. All right, board reports. Lisa?
I'll follow up the security discussion from Matt, and it's sad that yesterday in Seattle, Ingram High School, one of the 19 public high schools in Seattle, there was a school shooting and a student was killed. I'm very thankful for our security. They had no, the media said no school resource officer. They didn't talk about security guards, but I'm very thankful for our security guards. And I'm sad that happened. I think about those families. I'm thrilled for our math club doing so well at the high school and placing in competition. I think they're doing a wonderful job. And then I had a question with the ARC curriculum. Are we doing traditional like spelling tests? Is that part of that curriculum?
I know that in first grade, there is a spelling component to it.
Okay.
So, as far as like traditional,
Like you get a list of words and you gotta spell them right on
yeah, I
Friday.
think it's like, it's not like that. It's more embedded into the work that they're doing. It's kind of their power words that they've been working on throughout the week, maybe. And basically, there's some homework pieces to it that I know my teachers are.
So it's not the traditional where you memorize the words and you get the spelling test, but it's more embedded into their daily activities. And there is spelling though, part of it. It's not the traditional spelling test.
What about the spelling bee? Do you guys do you guys participate in the national spelling bee?
Middle school used
Process.
to do spelling competition. I don't know, and they haven't done academic
You're the
competitions.
Riverview Bees. You should. So you should. It's named after, yeah.
All right, Jeannie.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Oh, okay. We went to the homecoming game, go Prosser, but I wanted to compliment the people that were involved in putting on the fireworks show. It was fabulous. And everybody I've talked to said the same thing. I got to hand out candy downtown for the school district. That was fun. The kids and the costumes and the excitement. I can understand why kids like Halloween so well. Got to see the Willy Wonka play not only Friday night, but Saturday night. We have a lot of local talent and it's well worth the time. It was very enjoyable. And then I wanted to thank our veterans, particularly the ones that work for the school district, and greatly appreciate the sacrifice they've done for our country. On a side note, Chris Frazier that graduated here at Prosser in 1988 is retiring tomorrow, 34 years in the Army.
Wow.
He's been a commandant at Fort Bragg. A local boy, really did well. Yeah.
I don't really have anything. I've been busy with meetings and with PETA board and Hobbs and that, but I really don't have anything to share.
Mr. Rayner.
Not at this time.
Well, I've done nothing but work, so I don't have a whole lot either. The next thing on our list then is future meetings, and we have a study session here on the 16th starts. Are we gonna do or we're done for a while, or are you gonna do a safety meeting?
We'll have a safety meeting.
All right, so we will have a safety meeting here at 6, and then the study session for the whole board starts at 7. And that is on the 16th, and we will make a decision prior to that, what we're gonna do the day before Thanksgiving. And well, next thing on the list is an in fact, I gotta read that, huh? An executive session. It's RCW 42.30.1110-1G, no action to follow. And it is to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or review the performance of a public employee, however, subject to RCW 42.30.140-4, discussions by governing body of salaries, wages, or other conditions of employment be generally applied within the agency shall occur in a meeting open to the public. And when the governing body elects to take final action hiring, setting salary of an individual employee or class of employees, discharging or discipline an employee, that action shall be taken in an open public meeting. With that, we're gonna wait probably 5 minutes to go into executive session. So that's the end of the meeting, guys.
Isaiah.